Hey everyone, what's up? Send rum? Hey Dot. Hey Great Dane. Hey Mama 3. Hey SD. Hey Deb. Yeah, right, Mama? Mama, I kind of feel like LB. It is weird calling you Mama. Well, not really. We're both mamas. Mama, Mama, Mama. You doing better today? I feel bloated. I want chili, but I don't know, I'm hungry-ish, but I'm not. I've been picking at food all day, not really eating a meal. It's weird. Sometimes I do that and then I don't know. And of course, we're not in for a storm. We are in a storm once again. Sucks. So I doubt there'll be no school tomorrow. I need to get out of this house though. I have to go shopping. I don't think I'm gonna though. I'm gonna have to do Amazon for now. But it sucks because I need bread, milk, and butter, and they don't have bread, milk, or butter. You going live tonight, Dad? Huh. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out where the hell we were. Who's Brenda? Hey, Cool Gamer. Hey, Wendy. Oh, she was the um Oh yeah, Brenda Allen. She was the girl that would call the payphone. Hey, Teresa. Oh, okay, Mama. You don't know what happened? Gallon. I was like, what? Okay, so that Brala, now I'm doing it. So that Brenda Allen girl, she was the one, this one here. Oop. So she's like the head call girl. She calls the phone booth, you answer, and then you get to meet with a man. Oh my God. Hey, Patty. You're in the kitchen. I want to make chili. I want to get into my house is what I want to do. I haven't been able to leave in how long? I've lost track. I can see, but I can't. All right. Who's John Boy? Am I missing something? Yeah, but who the hell's John Boy? Hey, Kim. Hey, Brittany. Escort service, thank you, in the 1940s. You'll answer to anything? All right. So only a select few knew Brenda's address or her private phone number, but her Hollywood Exchange number had been advertised in the player's directory, and Stoker was able to obtain a private number and address from an employee at the telephone exchange. He discovered that Brenda was working out of an apartment building on the corner of Ninth Street and Fedora Avenue, an upscale neighborhood in the Wilshire district behind the Ambassador Hotel. Brenda maintained a nearby bungalow court at 836 Catalina Street, where a number of Brenda's girls who worked the Ambassador Hotel stayed. The hotel was just a half a block north of the bungalow. Oh, okay. John. While staking out Brenda's communication center on Fedora, Stoker posed as the delivery man and mimed ringing her bell while listening at the door. He could hear the phone frequently ringing and Brenda answering. Several days later, Stoker returned with an independent electronic surveillance expert, James Arthur Voss Jr., and they managed to enter the basement of Brenda's apartment building to place a tap on her phone. No, I don't care if you're doing. I'm just like lost. I'm slow as it is. Oh, I just want to congratulate Deb today. So she made a short. I was able to show her how to do it. She made one of her dog, and she's got over 1,000 views in what, 18 minutes? And 7 new subs plus more. I was like, holy crap. Amazing. Good job, Deb. On the second day of surveillance, Brenda called a number that rang a bell in my mind, Stoker recalled. Then it struck me full force. The number she had called was the confidential number of the administrative vice squad at Central. When someone answered Brenda's call, she asked for Sergeant Jackson and said it was Miss Johnson calling. She was told that Sergeant Jackson was out, but it wasn't long before Sergeant Jackson returned Brenda's call on the private line and said, "Hi, honey, how's business?" That's awesome, eh? I'm jealous. I put mine out. I got 18 views. I'm like, what? I did wrong. Nobody likes my sexy Claire. She struts her shit like no one else. But her heart belongs with Walter. Then they talked about business and private matters, and a rendezvous date was set up when Jackson would tell his wife that he had to be in court. Though he had heard rumors, Stoker was shocked to learn that Brenda's business partner was one of his superiors, Sergeant Elmer B. Jackson, the trusted aide of Lieutenant Rudy Wellpot, commander of its administrative vice, and a confidant of Assistant Chief Joe Reed. Stoker was also shocked to learn that some known Hollywood starlets worked for Brenda and that many of Brenda's customers were famous movie stars, studio executives, and major business and political figures in the city. An honest cop, Stoker tried to bring about an arrest for Brenda Allen for her vice activities, but was warned by members of the LAPD's notorious gangster squad to cease his unauthorized investigation, and he was soon transferred out of Central. Hi, Benita. The Gangster Squad. It's quite the name, eh? The Gangster Squad. Does anyone know anything about electric mixers? I've never owned one and I know nothing about them. Don't laugh at me. So I laugh. An electric mixer, like a cake mixer, or I know they're useful. It's better than using your hand, that's for sure. If you're mixing cake batter, because you get those little crystals and stuff. Yeah. The Squad had a dark history within the LAPD, originally called the Intelligence Unit. It was purportedly a unit that worked closely with the chief and administrative vice in gathering intelligence information regarding criminal elements operating within the city. But as a matter of practice, under the reign of Chief James E. Two Gun Davis, the intelligence unit became the enforcers of Chief Davis's corrupt regimen and the protectors of the vice take from the underworld. Yeah, is it a handheld mixer or is it you have an old stand-up one? That's my grandma's, and I have a held hand one also. Definitely helps when mixing cakes and such. Yeah, exactly, Benina. I've actually only used the handheld one. I've never had the like the good ones, yeah, that grandmas would have. When Angelenos learned in 1938 that members of the intelligence unit had tried to assassinate grand jury investigator Clifford Clinton, he was investigating LAPD corruption and payoffs to burn Fitz in City Hall. The intelligence unit was disbanded and became replaced by the Gangster Squad. Holy. Hi, Heavenly Cow. Yeah, I just got the one. I'm thinking a stand mixer would be better since my hands shake and I may end up repeating the kitchen. That's what I would get. I would. Yep. After being transferred to the oh wait, sorry, that was wrong. Oops, ahead of myself. But under the new regimen of Chief Clemens B. Horrell and Chandler's aside aide, Assistant Chief Joe Reed, only the name had changed. Horrell continued to use the Gangster Squad unit as enforcers and protectors of police corruption. When the Gangster Squad came under scrutiny by the grand jury in 1949 and was found to be enforcing payoffs from the syndicate, the name of the holy, I can't talk tonight. The name of the squad reverted back to the intelligence unit under the regime of Chief William Parker. However, when the intelligence unit was put under investigation by the police commission in 1974, it was once again learned that only the name had changed. After being transferred to the Hollywood division, Stoker soon observed that Brenda's girls would be on call at Hollywood parties or on special house calls to those on the A list. One of Brenda's big clients was Columbia studio boss Harry Cohn, who took Brenda's girls on cruises aboard his luxury yacht, along with his coterie of Hollywood pals and visiting leechers. One of the Hollywood hopefuls who fell through the Tinseltown trapdoor was the curvaceous blonde starlet, Barbara Payton, who became a prostitute on her way down the ladder of success before literally dying in the gutter from a narcotics addiction. Wow. Elizabeth Short met Barbara Payton through Lucille Varela at Al Green's nightlife bar and grill on McCadden. Al Green was Albert Louis Greenberg, a former bootlegger for Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky, who had a long rap sheet and did odd job robberies and rubouts on the side for Bugsy. When Elizabeth met Barbara Payton, Payton had already become a starlet on the casting couch circuit. She introduced Elizabeth to some movie and radio fringe people and taught her where the right places were to be seen by the right people. One of the right places was the Formosa Cafe, across the street from Samuel Goldwyn Studios, on the corner of Santa Monica Boulevard and Formosa Avenue. Stars and studio executives working on the Goldwyn lot would often dine and drink there, and the Formosa bar was a rendezvous at night for Hollywood lowlife looking for a high. Wow, that's kind of rude. In the 1940s, the back room was a bookie joint, and the upstairs was Bugsy Siegel's well-guarded office, where he kept his books, ran the extras guiled, and conducted the vice operations and business of his syndicate empire. It was the Formosa that actor Franchot Tone encountered an alluring young woman with jet black hair. Tone was starring in Phantom Lady with Ella Raines, which was shooting at Goldwyn. When he entered the Formosa and spotted the Black Dahlia sitting at the bar, Tone recalled that he struck up a conversation. She said she was waiting for someone, and I said, "Oh, of course you are. You're waiting for me." Over a few drinks, Tone told her that a Hollywood associate was looking for young women with your kind of looks. He suggested they go to the associate's apartment, and Elizabeth agreed to go with him after all. Tone was a prominent movie star, and he was going to the trouble of introducing her to someone who could get her career started. I don't know who any of these people are. Ella Raines, I don't know, or even the other ones. Barbara Payton. Tone recalled, "I thought it was a pickup from the start. She came with me so easily, but to her it wasn't anything of the kind. When they arrived, the associate wasn't there, and the apartment proved to be Tone's trysting place. Tone confirmed that he tried to kiss her a couple of times and lure her to the couch, but she resisted and scolded Tone for only having that in mind. It's actually I'm glad to hear that because I never thought of her as anything but a girl looking for love and a girl looking for stardom. So I'm really glad they put this in the book too, because a lot of people trash talk Elizabeth Short like really bad. When in doubt, Google it. They did movies for MGM, I believe. When they arrived, the associate wasn't there, and the apartment proved to be Tone's. Oh, I just read that. My God. He gave her a small amount of money, put her in a cab, and she was gone. Recalling the encounter to John Gilmore, author of Severed, the time story of the Black Dahlia murder, this came out in 1998, that book. Tone commented that he found the encounter to be a rather strange and unsettling experience. There was something sad and pathetic about her, Tone said. Without elaborating, Detective Harry Hansen commented that Elizabeth Short had been a bum and a tease, but being a bum and a tease was a gambit in her survival game, and she had her own rules. The cachet of Elizabeth Short's love letters discovered by the examiner revealed a romantic who dreamed of finding the right man, someone she could trust and give her heart to in an enduring relationship. While she could be a tease as a B girl and in her attempts to advance her movie career, she apparently valued herself and chose not to have relationships with men she didn't find attractive. At the same time, she enjoyed the attention that her appearance inevitably aroused. During her stay in Hollywood in 1944, Elizabeth frequented the Hollywood Canteen, where she danced with servicemen and met some of the movie star volunteers. Located near the corner of Sunset and Wilcox, the canteen had many Hollywood celebrities on its staff, including Bette Davis, John Garfield, and Irene Dunne. And it was at the canteen in September of 1994 that she met actor Arthur Lake, who played Dagwood in the Blondie series at Columbia Studios. I don't know if you guys know any of them. John Garfield, Bette Davis, Irene Dunne, and the Blondie series. I have no idea. Elizabeth was able to get free meals at the canteen by becoming a junior hostess like Georgette Bodefort. What? Bodorf? No, Bowerdorf. There we go. Who was also acquainted with Arthur Lake. Georgette and Elizabeth were both attractive 20-year-olds. When they became canteen volunteers in 1944, and they were both very popular with the visiting servicemen, who competed for an opportunity to cut it in on the dance floor. I agree, Darth. It is disgusting. And the way they talked about her too, it's awful. Awful. And to say they still don't know, I believe it's a cover up by the police, and I do believe that the police know. One night in mid-September, Elizabeth danced with Lieutenant Joseph Fickling, who at the time was a pilot stationed at the Army Air Base in Long Beach. Although it was against canteen rules, they began dating, and Elizabeth found herself falling in love. But like many wartime love affairs, the romance was put on hold when Fickling received his orders and was sent to England. They corresponded, and their love affair became documented in Elizabeth's memory book and the packet of love letters found in her lost luggage. It was shortly after Fickling's departure that canteen hostess Georgette Bowerdorf was murdered on October 12th, 1994 or 1944. Really? Georgette's body had been found floating in the bathtub in her West Hollywood apartment. She had been beaten, and asphyxiated. A cloth had been stuffed in her throat. The cloth proved to be bandage material used at military hospitals, and the sheriff's department suspected she may have been murdered by a serviceman who had followed her home from the Hollywood canteen. Several soldiers who had met Georgette at the canteen became suspects and were brought in for questioning, but no arrests were made, and the murder of Georgette Bowerdorf remained unsolved. Wow. Soon after the Bowerdorf murder, Elizabeth abruptly left Los Angeles and arrived in Medford in time for Thanksgiving with her mother and sisters. She then returned to Miami for the winter season of 1944 to 1945. And once again, she stayed at Almar Hotel on 21st Street. Though investigators found no record of her employment, she was often seen at beachfront bar called The Grotto, operated by East Coast Syndicate boss Mayor Lansky. Police records indicate that she returned to Medford at the end of March 1945 and was employed as a waitress at St. Clair's restaurant in Cambridge. It was at St. Clair's that Elizabeth first met Marjorie Graham, who was a coworker. Yeah, it's probably one of the most gruesome crimes I think you could do to a woman. I can't really recall anything quite like that ever happening again. Jack the Ripper maybe, but this was later in the 40s. They would later encounter each other in Hollywood and become roommates at the notorious Hawthorne Hotel. Following her seasonal travel pattern, Elizabeth returned to Miami in September 1945 and spent the winter at the Colonel Inn, an upscale hotel owned by Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky, which is known by the FBI to be a hoodlum-run gambling establishment. Police investigators found no record of Elizabeth's employment during her stay at the Colonel Inn. Briefly returning to Medford in the spring, Elizabeth shipped her luggage to Indianapolis on June 1st, 1946. According to her mother, Lieutenant Joseph Fickling was returning from Europe to the United States, and Elizabeth was going to meet Fickling in Indianapolis, where he was scheduled to arrive in the first week of June. Police records indicate that she went on to Chicago and stayed at the Park Row Hotel from June 24th until July 9th, before returning to Los Angeles for her third visit on July 12th, 1946. 6 months later, Elizabeth Short's mutilated and bisected body would be found among the weeds on Norton Avenue in Lemur Park. During Elizabeth's 5-month stay in Los Angeles between July 12th and December 6, 1946, police investigators established that she had resided in at least 11 different locations and had at least 50 different male acquaintances. Was the person or persons unknown among those acquaintances, or was the crime a random murder by a psychopath who had never known the victim? Detective Harry Hansen was convinced that that the location of the sacred setting, the secret of the autopsy, and the manner in which the body was displayed spoke of a connective clue to someone among her acquaintances. Yeah, I feel like she was punished. It's like she told a man no, and so he wanted to make a fool of her. I don't know, it's just an angry murder. A number of detectives from the administrative vice were assigned to the Hollywood area to trace Elizabeth Short's whereabouts and contacts prior to her sudden trip to San Diego on December 6th. Where did she live? Who did she know? Was she a beat girl or a prostitute? Was she involved in drug trafficking? Was she in some kind of trouble when she suddenly left the city? But it was hard to get a fix on the Black Dahlia. According to a former administrative vice officer, Vince Carter, Elizabeth Short was always on the move, and she hadn't established any close relationships that we could pin down. Nobody seemed to really know her very well, but they all remembered what she looked like. She made a vivid impression, but was very secretive about her private life. She was a loner. See, I don't get that. I wonder why. Like, all these secrets. I hope by the end of this book we can figure some of this out, or at least there's something, anything. That's all it is right now is a huge ass secret. Her whole life is a secret. Always hush hush. She was a loner. But she did have friends that when she moved into them, like moved in with them in apartments and things. I don't know. I have so many questions. When Elizabeth arrived in Los Angeles on July 12th, 1946, she checked into room 21 of the Washington Hotel at 53 Linden Avenue in Long Beach. Similar to her situation in Miami, was near the Washington, yeah, was near the oceanfront and a promenade populated by hotels, cafes, and cocktail lounges, frequented by servicemen. A local Long Beach druggist, Arnold Landos, who remembered Elizabeth Short, told the Examiner she lived down the street at the Washington, which is now called the Atwater. She'd come into our drugstore frequently. She'd usually wear one of those two-piece beach costumes, which left her midriff bare, or she'd wear black lacy things. Her hair was jet black and she liked to wear it high. She was popular with the men who came in here and they called her the Black Dahlia. The manager of the Washington Hotel, Fred Smelzer, recalled that she was visited at the hotel by a number of servicemen, and there was one Army officer who saw her frequently. It was Lieutenant Joseph Pickling. Hanson and Brand learned from Elizabeth's mother that her daughter had gone to Long Beach to meet Lieutenant Pickling, who was scheduled to be discharged at Long Beach Army Air Base at the end of August. According to Phoebe, Elizabeth's mother, Elizabeth and Fickling had plans to marry. When Captain Donahue was informed about Fickling, the Army pilot was quickly moved into the prime suspect hot seat, only recently vacated by Red Manley. On finding that Fickling was no longer in the city, Hanson and Brown located him in Charlotte, North Carolina. The Charlotte police were requested to question him as to his whereabouts at the time of the murder. Found living in his parents' home, Fickling denied that he had ever been in Los Angeles in 1947 in January. Fickling told the Charlotte police, I met Betty in 1944 before I went overseas. We met again when I got back last year. We carried on a long correspondence, but there was never any talk of our marriage. Under questioning, Fickling acknowledged that he had rendezvoused with Elizabeth in Indianapolis when he was returned to the States in June 1946. And he told the police that Elizabeth had taken a bus from Chicago to Long Beach, where he was scheduled to be discharged. Fickling stated that he met her at the Long Beach bus terminal and took her to the Washington Hotel, where he often visited her when he was off duty. When Fickling received a week's leave in August prior to his discharge, he told police that he had stayed with Elizabeth at the Brevoort Hotel in Hollywood near Vine Street. Checking out the Brevoort, Hanson and Brown found a registration card signed by Fickling indicating that he had registered there with his wife from August 20th to August 27th, 1946. Fickling insisted that that was the last time he had seen Elizabeth Short. Upon being discharged at the end of August, Fickling said he returned to his parents' home in Charlotte and he obtained employment with 20th Century Charter Airlines, which ran flights between Charlotte and Chicago. Witnesses confirmed to the Charlotte police that Fickling had been on flight assignments to Chicago on the days when Elizabeth had disappeared and the murder took place. Fickling insisted he had told Elizabeth that marriage for them was out of the question. And in the letter he had written to her in early December of 1946, he had stated, "Time and again, I've suggested that you forget me, as I believed it's the only thing for you to do to be happy." Acknowledging that he had heard from Elizabeth while she was in San Diego, Fickling produced a letter he received from her dated December 13th, 1946, in which she had written. I love that there's letters in here that we're able to see and read. "I do hope you find a nice young lady to kiss at midnight on New Year's Eve. It would have been wonderful if we belonged to each other now. I will never regret coming west to see you. You didn't take me in your arms and keep me there. However, it was nice as long as it lasted." Like, this poor girl just keeps getting her heart broken. In the same letter, she had told him that she desperately needed money for something, and Fickling told the police he had wired her $100 while she was staying at the French's home in San Diego. In 1946, $100 was a considerable sum, equivalent to $600 today. Wow. The request for money was a pattern for Elizabeth. Following the death of Mac Gordon in 1945, his family was bewildered when she wrote to them asking for financial assistance. I wonder why. Like, why does she always need money? And large sums of it. So if $100 she got back then is equivalent to $600, what would you need that money for? And if she was working, I guess what, as a call girl, I don't I don't understand. How was she always broke? She was gone all night, slept during the day with all these men. I don't know. I don't get it. The last letter Fickling received from Elizabeth was from San Diego and postmarked January 8th, the day before she vanished. Oh, wow. She wrote, "Do not write to me here. I am planning to go to Chicago to work for Jack." Fickling told police investigators that she had once told him that Jack operated a modeling agency in Chicago. The devastating rejection by Lieutenant Joseph Fickling at the end of August, he returned to Charlotte without her, was the beginning of her slide into the depths of the Tinseltown trap. It was on August 28th, the day after Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Fickling checked out of the breadboard, that Elizabeth Short checked into the notorious Hawthorne Hotel, owned by Nate Bass and operated by syndicate minion Glenn Wolfe, who also managed the Chancellor. And it was at the Hawthorne that a short, dark complexioned mystery man who drove an old 1936 or 1937 black Ford sedan began paying Elizabeth's rent. 4.5 months later, Elizabeth Short's mutilated, bisected body would be found in the weeds of Norton Avenue in Leimert Park. Wow. There's just the mysteries. I can't take it. Chapter 8, Persons Unknown. The Hawthorne Hotel was just south of Hollywood Boulevard, behind the Roosevelt Hotel, and known to be a rendezvous for prostitutes who worked at the Roosevelt and its popular Hollywood night spot, the Sin Grill. When questioned by reporters, Hawthorne desk clerk Jim McGrath recalled that Elizabeth Short had shared a room with two young women, Marjorie Graham and Lynn Martin. Miss Graham had known Elizabeth from Boston, where they had worked together as waitresses at St. Clair's in Cambridge. According to Graham, they had run across each other in a store on Hollywood Boulevard in August 1946. After Lieutenant Fickling had checked out of her life, Elizabeth had moved into Hawthorne, where Marjorie had been sharing a room with Lynn Martin. Elizabeth had no money, and Marjorie and Lynn took her in. Two male residents of the Hawthorne, Harold Costa and Donald Lees, told the police and reporters that they had been boyfriends of Elizabeth's roommates who referred to her as Beth. Whenever we took the girls out to dinner, they always asked us if we might bring Beth along, Costa told reporters. They said the kid was broke and hungry. After staying a month at the Hawthorne, Elizabeth checked out on September 28th. The police tried to find her old roommates, but according to the desk clerk, Marjorie Graham and Lynn Martin had left the hotel shortly after Elizabeth's departure. Miss Short was always getting behind in her rent, the hotel clerk recalled. Whenever she did, a short, dark-haired complexioned man, about 35 or 40, came in and paid her bill. He used to drive an old black Ford sedan and park it in front. When Beth left the hotel last September, she piled her baggage in the short, dark complexioned man's car and drove off. Apparently, the mystery man in the old dark Ford sedan drove Elizabeth to a residence at 6024 Carlos Avenue, which was just behind the Florentine Gardens nightclub. Yeah, that's what it sounds like, Patty. But what I don't understand, why wouldn't she move back with her mom, get a job, earn some money, and then go try and live the big dream? Do it, I mean, responsibly. You can't just expect people to take care of you for the rest of your life. I mean, all these women keep taking her in, and then she takes advantage of it by not getting a job and disappearing all night. I just don't understand how she hasn't or didn't have any, I don't know. It's just bugging me. So the house on Carlos was owned by the proprietor of the Florentine Gardens, Mark Hansen, no relation to Detective Harry Hansen. A multi-millionaire, Mark Hansen owned a number of apartment buildings and rooming houses in the Hollywood area, as well as the Marcel Theater on Hollywood Boulevard and the Roseland Ballroom in downtown Los Angeles. Some of the showgirls and B-girls who worked at the Florentine Gardens lived in Hansen's rooming houses, and some stayed as guests at his Carlos Avenue residence. Nils Thor Granlund, aka NTG, who staged who staged the nightclub floor shows and was considered a connoisseur of Hollywood beauties, frequently stayed at Carlos' residences, and he was known to cavort with the girls in his apartment above the garage. In the ads in the adsidency, what is that word? The adsinancy? I don't know. In the whatever of Hollywood wannabes back in the 40s, it was considered a step up the stairway to stardom to get in with the NTG Hanson crowd. Betty Hutton, Yvonne DiCarlo, Lily St. Cyr, Jean Wallace, Gwen Verdon, and Marie "the Body" McDonald were among those who got their start in the Florentine Gardens floor show, which rivaled Earl Carroll's dinner theater at one of the more popular Hollywood's night spots of the time. Yeah, it's bugging me. Well, she wasn't picked out or kicked out or anything, Patty, so I don't understand. Like, that's just not a way to live. She had to have known that. But despite the frequent booking of headliners, the Florentine Gardens could never escape its image as a hangout for the Hollywood lowlife. The floor shows were only one Patsy Spangle above burlesque, and the B girls and hookers were always there to make sure the booze flowed freely and the customers were satisfied. There was a secret card room above the foyer run by Bugsy Siegel's pal, Jimmy Utley, where Monet customers were readily pleased. While the Florentine Gardens was ostensibly operated by Mark Hansen and Frank Bruni, it was commonly known by the cognoscenti of the Hollywood underworld that Hansen and Bruni were fronting for the syndicate. Bugsy Siegel and Mickey Cohen had their own special table and bevy of queens, which included Virginia Hill's rival for Bugsy's affection, Marie the Body McDonald. Because Bugsy controlled the extras guild, he could get the Florentine Gardens, Corrine's extra work in the movies at the drop of a G-string. And NTG, who staged the shows for syndicate nightclubs across the country, could get the girls gainful employment in a number of venues. Judy Walters, a former prostitute who once worked for Mark Hansen, recalled, yeah, like she would have money though, wouldn't she? Not rich, but she would have money to pay her rent. So Judy Walters writes, which is a former prostitute. I was supposed to have been another discovery like Betty Hutton or somebody. I was promised spots in NTG's shows at the gardens instead of wet nursing the customers. The drinks were watered and the food wasn't fit for a dog. We were supposed to see that the suckers left in good spirits with empty pockets. Bugsy Siegel was around there once or twice. I don't know, maybe more than that. And I was looking for a way to get to Vegas to work for Siegel and Mo Sedway. He was living at the Roosevelt Hotel then. I know they wanted NTG to head the Flamingo, so I stayed on, but whatever promises were made anyone at the gardens, it didn't ever happen. Instead of getting in the chorus and being on a show or being a showgirl, I ended up dancing with winos and sex fiends at Hanson's Roseland Ballroom downtown. According to Judy, an assistant manager of Florentine Gardens was an enforcer cop, pal of Mark Hanson's. The cops were on the take, Judy said, and this undercover cop would keep his eye on what was going on just to make sure that the juice wasn't getting watered down. The real gangsters were the cops. Sounds scary. It was into this milieu that Elizabeth was moved to Carlos' residence on September 28th by the short, dark-complexioned man driving the old black Ford sedan. So what is he, like a sugar daddy? Because that's two girls now. Elizabeth shared a room with pretty Hollywood starlet Anne Toth, who was one of Hanson's many girlfriends. Not long after Elizabeth moved in, she arranged for her friend Marjorie Graham to move into the home on Carlos, and she also became one of Mark Hanson's non-paying guests. Rob Slatzer, a young man from Columbus, Ohio, who would travel to Hollywood to become a screenwriter, often went to the Florentine Gardens and dated Anne Toss several times before becoming the boyfriend of another Hollywood wannabe, Norma Jean Daughtry. I don't know these people. Norma Jean had only recently signed as a starlet with the 20th Century Fox, and the studio had changed her name. Oh shit, it's Marilyn Monroe. I was gonna say Norma Jean. Marilyn liked going to the Florence Gardens and enjoyed Granny's NTG shows and liked dancing in the conga line, Slatzer recalled. Though she was relatively unknown then, Mark Hansen knew who Marilyn was, and occasionally he'd ask us over to his table where there'd always be three or four attractive women and some questionable looking flashy characters. Slatzer remembered that Elizabeth Short was at Hanson's table on several occasions, and she was attractive but seemed withdrawn and didn't have much to say. Elizabeth Short and Marilyn spoke several times, Slatzer recalled. That's what I've always wanted to know if they knew each other. And she would ask Marilyn, Elizabeth would ask Marilyn what she should do to get a studio contract, but Elizabeth didn't have Marilyn's driving ambition. She dreamed of being a film star but wasn't willing to make the effort. She seemed to have a defeated attitude, as I recall, and she hung around a bad crowd. When questioned by reporters about Elizabeth Short, Ann Toth said, "We used to think the world of that kid. She was always well behaved and sweet when I knew her, but Beth could not stand up to trouble, and she was always in hot water. She was skeptical of people, but despite that, often stumbled into trash." Yeah, I know as when I was reading, I'm like, "Isn't that Marilyn?" According to Ann Toth, Elizabeth had been promised extra work in the movies and a role in NTG's next Florentine Gardens review. It was inferred in the press that Elizabeth had become one of Mark Hanson's many girlfriends, but he adamantly denied to the police that he had ever been intimate with her. She dated many different men while she was living here, Hanson said, mostly hoodlums whom I wouldn't even let in my house. I don't get it. She's gorgeous. Commenting on an occasional visitor of Elizabeth's, Anne Toth described him as a short, dark-complexioned man in his late 30s, 5 feet 6 inches tall, of medium build, a little fellow. He drove an older black Ford sedan. Beth called him Maurice, and he had promised to set up Elizabeth in an apartment in Beverly Hills. Anne Toth had put a name to the mysterious short, dark-complexioned man who used to park in front of the Hawthorne and pay Beth's rent. The mystery man who picked up Beth in his old black Ford sedan and helped her move to Mark Hanson's place on Carlos. Was it the same 1936 or 1937 black Ford sedan seen by Robert Meyer and the newsboy Bobby Jones as it remained parked for several minutes at the site where Elizabeth Short's mutilated and bisected body was disposed of in the pre-dawn hours of January 15th, 1947? Apparently, Detective Harry Hansen suspected that it was, and that Maurice may have been the connecting link between Elizabeth's Hollywood acquaintances and the sacred setting. Witnesses at the Chancellor and the Florentine Gardens were uncomfortable talking about Maurice or mentioning the mystery man's name because he was a dangerous subject. Maurice was connected, sorry. Maurice was co- sorry. Maurice was connected. Okay, period. Maurice proved to be Maurice Clement, a minion of Bugsy Siegel and Mikey Cohen, who was the procurer for the syndicate cowgirl ring run by the notorious Hollywood Madame Brenda Allen. Although Maurice was never publicly named by Captain Donahue or the press as the suspect, the Black Dahlia files recently found in the Los Angeles District Attorney's office placed him high on the suspect list. If I can read these, there's like 22 suspects. Yeah, she was so young. Oh, okay, Mama. Yeah, that's what they're saying. I mean, so Elizabeth Short murder. The following are suspects in the murder of victim Elizabeth Short: C. Welsh, Sergeant Chuck, name unknown, Carl Balsiger, John D. Wade, Joe Skulls, James Nemo, Maurice Clement, a Chicago police officer, Salvador Torres Veres, Dr. George Hoddle. Yeah, Brittany. Now, that doctor, George Hoddle, so his son, Stephen, was on the Dr. Phil show, and he was adamant that his father was the killer. But I'm going to read this whole book first because apparently it's not true. 11 is Margolis, Glenn Wolfe, Michael Anthony Otero. It's so hard to read, it's so small. Francis Campbell, George Bacchus, queer woman surgeon. Yeah, he was a doctor. Queer woman surgeon. Dr. Paul DeGaston, Dr. A.E. Eriks, Dr. M.M. Schwartz, Dr. Arthur McGinnis Spott, Dr. Patrick S. O'Reilly, and then Mark Hansen. Wow, that's a lot of doctors. Maurice Clement is 7 on Jemison's suspect list, which includes 6 surgeons known to be abortionists with arrest records. Wow. Former Columbia studio employee Al Nolan recalled that Maurice Clement worked for the talent department at Columbia Studios. He set up the liaisons for Brenda's girls with the studio brass and their friends. According to Nolan, Elizabeth Short knew Maurice and was one of the girls he chauffeured around. At the time, it was common knowledge on the Columbia lot that a number of Brenda's girls maintained an apartment on North Gower Street, not far from the studio entrance. Testimony recently found in the district attorney's Black Dahlia files give further insight into Maurice Clement and Elizabeth's stay at Mark Hansen's. When questioned in 1949 by Finis Brown and Lieutenant Jemison for the grand jury, Anne Toth said that she knew Elizabeth was dating many different men, but knew little about them because Mark Hansen was extremely jealous, and Elizabeth had to be careful about bringing her boyfriends around the house on Carlos. Beth had to be cautious, Anne Toth stated. Everybody picked her up a block away, and everybody dumped her off a block away because she wouldn't dare bring anybody to the house. Then why was she seeing these guys anyways? They ended up dying young, and some broke away from the curse. Like, why would she even risk that? Is she getting paid? She can't be because she never has any money, and this guy's paying her rent. So I don't understand this. Does she like sex? Is she a sex fiend? Is she an addict? When Finis asked why, Toss said, "Well, Mark wouldn't like it." I mean, he more or less possessed her from the time she came there so naturally she didn't even have anyone call for her there at the house ever. If it hadn't been for Mark, I guess I would have found out lots of things because they would have called there, you know what I mean? I would have got acquainted with them. But he warned her not to bring anybody down there, not to go out with anybody else. Ann Toth told the 1949 grand jury investigators that when Mark wasn't around, Elizabeth would make secretive outgoing calls on the house phone. Toth recalled that she often called somebody in Beverly Hills, and she often called Maurice. This is bad idea. Brown. Clement, was it? Toth. Maurice Clement. Did you ever talk to him again? Brown. Talked to him several times. Toth. Was it Clement? Brown. Clement is a teacher. Though Finis Brown acknowledged that the police had questioned Maurice Clement several times, no transcript of Clement's LAPD interrogation has ever been made public, nor was it placed in the district attorney's files. Well, that's strange. And when Ann Toth asked, "What is Clement?" Finis Brown deliberately misled her in saying, "Clement is a teacher." Finis was fully aware that Maurice Clement was an employee in the talent department of Columbia Studios, and he knew of Clement's contacts with Brenda Allen as a syndicate procurer. Toth says, "Clement little on the dark side? Little fellow. Was he driving a Ford? Two-door sedan? Yes." Finis quickly changes the subject. Finis says, "Do you recall of her ever going to a doctor? Did you ever know of a time when she ever rode with you or anybody that you know of and let her off on Hollywood Boulevard at any doctor's place?" Toss says, "Mark Hansen might have driven her down. She was going to one on Hollywood Boulevard. I think maybe the teacher, Maurice, brought her down there once. It seems to me she said she was going to meet him one Sunday afternoon, but of course he wouldn't be in his office on a Sunday afternoon." Finis said, "Ever hear of Dr. Fott?" "No." And Jemison piped in, "Or Dr. Paul de Gaston?" "No." "Did you ever hear her mention a Dr. Morris, C.J. Morris?" "No. I don't remember the doctor's name she was supposed to be going to." "Dr. Morris had been mentioned in a connection with some abortions. He was a man that could perform an abortion in case a girl wanted it." "Did she ever mention that?" "No." "You drove her downtown in Los Angeles there near Biltmore Hotel on one occasion, didn't you? Near there?" Toss said yes. "About how long was that before she left for San Diego? Do you have any idea?" Toss says about 2 weeks. "Didn't she give you any reason whatsoever to ask to be taken down there near the Biltmore Hotel? Didn't she tell you who she was going to meet?" Todd says, "I thought she was supposed to meet the school teacher there, Maurice." The Me Too movement with Harvey. Yeah. Thank you, Patty. Oof. After California statutes require that grand jury testimony remain sealed unless there is an indictment, it was leaked to the press at the time that a wealthy Hollywood man had become a prime suspect in the Black Dahlia murder. The district attorney's Black Dahlia files revealed that the wealthy Hollywood man was Mark Hansen, proprietor of the Florentine Gardens, and on December 16th, 1949, investigator Frank Jemison took Mark Hansen's testimony in the presence of Sergeant Ed Barrett of the LAPD Homicide Division. In the Black Dahlia Avenger, author Steve Hoddle claimed that the wealthy Hollywood man was his father, George. But the grand jury files confirm that George Hoddle has been dismissed as a suspect. See, and people are still saying that he is the girl. All right, come on. You can't press that. What are you doing? Here, you can come up later. Jemison says, "State your full name." Hanson says, "Mark Hanson." "Were you acquainted with Beth Shore before her death?" "Yes, I knew her." "Just how did you happen to meet her?" "Well, her and another girl had no place to stay, and a fellow brought them over." I can't pet you right now, darling. I'm trying. Was that Marjorie Graham with Best Short at that time? Yes. Yes. And can you remember the month and the year when this happened? I think it was in October in 1946. The cop says, was she a pretty good looking gal? Hanson says, well, I thought she was fair looking, average, if it wasn't for her teeth. She had bad teeth. Other than that, she would have been beautiful. I don't know. Her teeth look fine there. She does. I'm telling you, this she won't leave me alone. There, happy? It's all about Claire. Here, there you go, pretty. Here, look up. Look. All about you? I think you want to be a YouTube star. Brittany's right. Can you remember the month and the year when this happened? I think it was in October 1946, and that's when he said something about her teeth. Other than that, she would have been beautiful. But how long did these two girls live there at that time in October? Perhaps a week or 10 days, something like that. Did they leave at that time then? Well, I asked them to move because this Graham girl, she was inclined to be liquored up, and I didn't like it at all. What are you pressing? Girl, you want to be a YouTube star? Yeah, to me Claire's channel? Don't you kick me? So I asked them to move because this Graham girl, she was inclined to be liquored up, and I didn't like it at all. And this short girl, she had always some undesirable looking character waiting for her outside and bringing her home. Did she have some boyfriends during the time she was there? There was one particular fellow that brought her home and came and got her. He didn't look very good. He had a coupe of some kind. I think it was about a 38 or 39 Chevrolet or Ford, something like that. He didn't look so good to you? No, I saw him from the outside. I saw him standing, come to the door, picking her up. What did you tell Beth Short about this fellow that didn't look so good? I didn't tell her anything. I told her I wanted them to move. Didn't want them. Those damn girls liquored up. I asked them to. Yeah. I don't know. I'm wondering too. Did they? I don't know. Because her teeth look fine to me in every picture I've seen. Unless, yeah, they fixed her they must have. I don't know. Because there's nothing wrong with her teeth that I've ever seen. So maybe they did doctor it up. His teeth were almost painted in. I bet you that's what happened. You didn't have any bad feelings against Beth Short at the time, did you? No, I didn't have any hard feelings against her at all. With all your experience, didn't you kind of take an interest in her welfare and, about these fellows she was going out with? I spoke to her about did she know the caliber of men they were. She said yes, she had been around. She knew what life was all about, that is what she said. Would you say she was a sexy type girl? Well, I don't know if she was a sexy type girl. She appeared to be a very nice girl. Well, as far as your knowledge of her is concerned, would you say she was having intercourse with these various fellows or more of the prostitute type or not? No, no. She appeared to be a more domestic type girl. Did she tell you that she was engaged to Gordon Fickling while she was there? Yes, she was engaged to some fellow flyer or something. I think it was Gordon Fickling. He was in the East. She said she was engaged to be married. Did she indicate to you she was saving herself for him? Yeah, more or less. Well, then you say these two girls left your place about that time? Hum. Where did they move to? Do you remember? No, I don't. I think it was over to that apartment hotel. When Beth and Marjorie moved from Hanson's house on Carlos to that apartment hotel, they had moved into room 726 of the Guardian Arms Hotel at 5217 Hollywood Boulevard, and they shared a room with two men they had met on the street, Bill Robinson and Marvin Margolis. Robinson told the police that the girls were broke, and he and Margolis had tried to find them a place to stay, but ultimately allowed them to share their apartment at the Guardian Arms, which consisted of a sitting room and a small bedroom. That's crazy. Yeah, one person says one thing, and the next You just don't go walk on the street and be like, "Hey, I need someone to stay." Like, she was literally house hopping. But for what? What was she do I'm sorry, but if you're trying to be a movie star or a model, an actress, whatever, why are you sleeping all day? What the fuck are you doing at night? That is so, like, I don't know. You have to do the like, you're so what, you're working at night, but yet you're broke. Then you meet this guy and he's not paying your rent, but you have to call him to pay your rent because he just doesn't do it automatically, but you still have no money. Why are you sleeping all day if you're trying to become an actress or a model? What is it that you're doing? I don't know. I have so many questions. She got sidelined. Probably, yeah. So the guy said Beth slept on the sofa, Robinson said, and he slept in the bedroom with Marge. According to Robinson, the girls moved in on October 10th and they both left on October 22nd. It was Robinson's understanding that both girls had become disenchanted with Hollywood and had decided to return to Massachusetts, but only Marjorie had enough money to make the trip. On October 22nd, Marjorie Graham took a Greyhound bus back to Boston. Yeah, it didn't work out. Until Elizabeth could afford to buy a ticket home. She needed someplace to stay. And Marvin Margolis told the police that he had accompanied her back to Mark Hansen's residence on Carlos, claiming to be Elizabeth's cousin. Margolis asked Hansen if Elizabeth could leave her luggage there overnight. Jemison says, well, isn't it a fact that she moved back over the house there for a period of time prior to her going over to the Chancellor? Yes, here's what happened. She came back and visited, and Margulies was doing all the talking, and he says she was going to move back home, and he carried the suitcase up, and I says, "What's this?" He says, "Can she leave this here overnight? She's going away tomorrow and would like to leave these until tomorrow." Who's doing the talking? This cousin, Margulies? Yes, and I said, "I guess that will be all right." That night I come home, Beth Short was there. That's all she had was luggage. Yeah. Jemison says, inside the house, Hanson. I said, I thought you were going to just leave your suitcases. And she said, I didn't have no place to stay. Would I mind if she stayed? She kept staying and staying. Then she moved over to the Chancellor apartment. Now, on the second occasion, when Beth Short left to go over to the Chancellor apartments, yes, how did she happen to be leaving your place on that occasion? Hanson says, because I told her I didn't want her staying there. She said she would find a place, and she did. What was your reason for asking Beth Short to leave? I didn't want her there. I didn't like the caliber of people she showed up with. Isn't it a fact that you felt sorry for her and she was a pretty nice girl? Yes, I told her to her face. She still went out and kicked around. So what does that mean? You didn't like the idea of her kicking around. Hanson says, that's right. I didn't want that false business, cussing, drinking. I had no reason having her there. While she was living at the Chancellor Apartments, she came back to your house and got mail? I didn't see her, but she was sitting there one night when I came home with Anne about 5:30, 6 o'clock, sitting and crying and saying she had to get out of there. She was crying about being scared, one thing and another. I don't know. She said she was going to Oakland to a sister. She said she was scared. Did she have dinner with you that night? Yes, she did. She had dinner with Anne. What? So she's sitting on the steps waiting for her mail, but she's scared and has to leave to go see her sister. And then he asked if you were having dinner that night, and yeah, they had dinner with Anne. What the fuck? I'm so lost. Did you sympathize with her when she was crying? Yes, I felt sorry for her. Did you take her home, up to the Chancellor Apartments? He says he did. What did you talk about? She was talking about saying she was going to Oakland to visit her sister there and asked if she can come back to my house when she got back. I told her, I don't think so. Better find another place. Yeah. What did you tell her? It was on account of these boys? No, it was her whole makeup because she picked up with bums. Not only them, but with bums. Okay. When you took her over to the Chancellor, did she ask you for any money that night? No. What was she doing for money? I don't know. When you took her over there that night, did you take her up to her room? No, I left her off on the street. You believed she was going to Oakland. The next day, she said she was going the next day. She did leave the next day? I don't know. But didn't you see her again? I never saw her again. I am told by certain people who have known you that you have from time to time mentioned that you had some knowledge of the medical profession. Oh, no, I never have. Do you recall telling people that? No, sir, I never have. I never had any knowledge of any medical profession whatsoever. Well, now, will you try to remember? Do you remember telling people you did have a connection with, for instance, abortions? Abortions? No, I never have. I never say no such thing. I never had any knowledge of such. Did you ever assist in connection with an abortion operation of some girl? No, 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 never. I don't know nothing about it. And then you never did attempt any abortion with instruments, surgical instruments? Oh no, I don't know anything about such. Okay, that's all I want. Your answer. And I guess that was the end of the questioning. On the night before she left for San Diego, Elizabeth had told Ann Topp and Mark Hansen she was scared. And on the following day, December 6th, when she checked out of the Chancellor, she had told one of her roommates, Linda Rohr, that she was frightened. She seemed worried or afraid, Linda recalled. What was it that had frightened Elizabeth in those last days at the Chancellor before she suddenly left the city? It may have had something to do with Maurice. Another roommate, Cheryl Mayland, had stated that one of Elizabeth's frequent callers in her last days at the Chancellor had been Maurice. And on the night of January 15th, shortly after the headlines about the werewolf killer hit the streets, a man by the name of Clement had entered the Hollywood bar where she worked. A werewolf. He told the bartender that he wanted to speak to Cheryl. It was Cheryl's night off, but the man returned the following evening and told Cheryl he had to speak with her about Beth Short. Frightened, she refused to speak with him and avoided him until he finally left. Cheryl described Clement as a slight, dapper, olive-skinned man. Notations found within the 1949 grand jury files indicate that Detective Harry Hansen had questioned Maurice Clement about his relationship with the victim, and Clement had admitted that he had seen Elizabeth Short in the days just before she suddenly left the city. Clement had to admit he had seen her on at least 6 occasions in the first week of December because witnesses had seen them together. This is really small writing. Also interviewed was Maurice Clement, who stated he met her about December 1st in Brittenham's restaurant on Sunset Boulevard. At that time, she was broke, and he paid her dinner check. He stated he saw her possibly 3 or 4 times within that week. Look how hard this is to read. See how small that is, the black? It's very hard. No, in the 1940s. 1940, I think we're at 49 right now. 1949. Witnesses said that Elizabeth frequented, that's what it was, Brittenham's, okay, restaurant, which was just around the corner from Columbia Studios on some Sunset and Gower. George Backos, an usher at CBS across the street, stated to police that he had often seen her there, as had Nina Blanchard, who later became a famous modeling agency executive. At that time, Nina Blanchard was a waitress at Brittenham's, where many of the Columbia studio executives and employees socialized. According to Blanchard, Elizabeth used to frequent Brittenham's and was also seen with studio executive Max Arnow, who was in charge of the talent department. How is she going in restaurants eating when she has no money? Yeah, 2001, 2003. Max Arno was notorious for supplying Harry Cohn and the Columbia brass with ladies of the night or the day, and Maurice Clement, who was on the Columbia Talent Department payroll, was known to be Brenda Allen's procurer who chauffeured the ladies around to the big shots, trysting places for Arno. A witness had seen Maurice and Elizabeth in conversation at Brittenham's on at least 4 occasions early in December 1946, shortly before she left the city. Because there were witnesses, Maurice had to admit to Harry Hansen that the conversations at Brittingham's took place, but he lied to the police and stated that he had met Elizabeth for the first time that first week of December. However, the statements of Anne Toth and the desk clerk at Hawthorne clearly established that Maurice had met her at least as early as September, when he occasionally paid her rent at the Hawthorne and had offered to set her up in the apartment in Beverly Hills. In her testimony to the district attorney investigators, Toth had estimated that it was at least 2 weeks before she left the city, sometime in November, that she had dropped off Elizabeth near Biltmore, where Anne Toth believed she was meeting Maurice. Anne Toth thought it may have been Maurice who had driven her to the doctor's office on Hollywood Boulevard shortly before Elizabeth suddenly left for San Diego. Why would she have to go to the doctor, though? Abortion? Maurice Clement was high on the person or persons unknown suspect list in the Black Dahlia files, and there was reason to believe that when Elizabeth Short walked out of the Biltmore Hotel on January 9th, 1947, and headed towards 6th Street and into the night, Maurice Clement knew her destination. 1 week later, Elizabeth Short's mutilated and bisected body would be found among the weeds of Norton Avenue in Lumet Park. That seems to be every statement after every chapter. Sushi. Here's like a newspaper article. Should be able to read it. Woman sought as Dahlia. Probe takes new turn. Los Angeles, January 21st. Police made a complete about-face today in their efforts to find the murderer of pretty Elizabeth Short and began an intensive search for a woman rather than a man as the mutilator of the Black Dahlia. Wow. So they thought it was the girl at first. There's so many articles. That's awesome. Former roommates of the strikingly beautiful 22-year-old girl were placed first on the list of those to be questioned. The decision to change all previous tactics of the week-long search came after a meeting of the city's top-ranking police officials, which began last night and lasted well into the morning. One search in the new drive is for a girl roommate who disappeared January 15th, the day Miss Short's tortured and mutilated body hacked into was found in a lover's lane. You need chocolate again? Yeah, woman sought in the Dahlia slang. Two short, thin brunettes, frequenters of Hollywood hangouts, were sought by police yesterday as possibly the last companions of Elizabeth Short before she was slain January 15th. Search for these Hollywood women about town were geared into a larger hunt based on the ever-strengthening theory that the Black Dahlia may have been murdered by a woman. I didn't know that. Anybody else know that? They thought maybe her murderer was a woman? Coupled with this theory was the growing belief that the 23-year-old girl was a prisoner, and that's all I got. I wish I had the whole article. Record yourself eating the chocolate. I'll just read a little bit of this chapter, a few minutes, and then, or maybe I won't. I should probably stop. Let me see. Oh, what the? Will Dahlia Slang join album of unsolved murders? And down here it says werewolves leave trail of woman murders in LA. I keep doing this wrong. I'll take a picture of these and put it in my community tab. But what? So Elizabeth Short, Mrs. Aura Murray, Georgette Bauerdorf, Gertrude Landon. All four women. Warbles leave trail of women murders in LA. In the gory album of unsolved murders, kidnappings, and crimes against women in general, Los Angeles police say may have to insert a new page. The mystery of the sadistic slaying of Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia. The torture slaying of Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia, a week old today, may join the gory album of unsolved crimes against women in Los Angeles. Wow. What? Okay, I'll read this next time, but they got a letter and it says, "Here is Dahlia's belongings. Letter to follow." It's pretty interesting. Dahlia killer mails contents of missing purse to examiner. Wow. Well, had her address book and birth certificate. So hard to read. Very hard. Elizabeth Short, daughter of Cleo and Phoebe, was home at Boston's on July 29th, 1924. It's just crazy. These werewolf murders. I never even really heard of that, actually. Not that I can think of. So that Hodder guy, Steve Hodder, whatever, he was on Dr. Phil. I'm gonna show you if you guys want to watch it. I did end up watching it. Thing is though, it's already been proven non-factual. Where is it? So it is right here. Hollywood obsessed, a Black Dahlia murder mystery, new evidence found. Well, all these people are like, "Oh, I'm so glad," but that's the thing. This is old news. Yeah. My ex-girlfriend went my ex-girlfriend's late grandmother went to school with Elizabeth Short. She said that Elizabeth Short was popular in high school because she was so beautiful. She made all the boys' heads turn. But she wasn't promiscuous at all. When word got back to her hometown about her murder, everyone was shocked. This is what I was told almost 17 years ago. I don't know about these letters. What did it say? Wondering if they still have the letters that were sent. Lift up the stamp and test for DNA. Yeah, 'Cause it's not him. It wasn't George Hodel, whatever the hell his name is. This person says, "Elizabeth Short, I've always thought it was that producer." It's a lot of comments. I could be here all night. What the hell did you press on this girl? This is the guy they're saying. Oh, that's his son. Oh, come on. They're saying this guy was the murderer, but it was proven that he wasn't. Cookies and ice cream. Yeah, absolutely. And she had no blood. She was completely drained of blood, apparently. I'm not so they took out, yeah, because they did it somewhere else and then dropped her off in that field for her to be found. I feel like she was just it was like a statement, almost like a fuck around, find out kind of statement, you know what I mean? Like whatever is going on back then, she was a part of and she was gonna tell maybe. Um, and somebody made an example of her. A lot of people made an example of her, actually, I would say. So I think a lot of people were in on this. I don't think it was just one person. I think it's a big secret and it goes, even beyond law enforcement. There's judges and then parole officers and sergeants and cops and I don't know. I feel like it's bigger than what we think. Because why all the secrets and why can't they release the file? This happened in the 40s and they will not open this Black Dahlia file. I don't get it. Everything that they have is in this book I got. That's why I chose it because it does have everything. I just need to get to the end and hopefully we'll have answers. I mean, the mob was involved in everything. I don't know, maybe she was gonna tell on the doctor that's doing the abortions illegally. Yeah, I can. Yep. Sure did see that, Teresa. Well, the star of the show passed out beside me. Just weird that that suspect list is that doctor, Dr. Hodler. Oh my God, I can't remember his damn name. Steve Huddle. That was the son of the supposed killer, yeah. I was gonna get his book too, but then I changed my mind because this had so much more stuff. Yeah, there's all the transcripts here of all the questions and interviews. Dr. Hoddle was the wealthy Hollywood man who was revealed to be a prime suspect in the murder. Shortly after the murder, Dr. George Hoddle tried to silence Elizabeth's former Chancellor Apartments roommate, Cheryl Mayland. There's no evidence to support Steve Huddle's claims in Black Dahlia Avenger, and his father knew Elizabeth Short or had anything to do with her murder. Wow. So if you guys want to check out Dr. Philip McGraw, I watched it, but like I said, it's all been proven that that guy, like Steve's father George, is not in fact the murderer. It'd be nice to know who was though. We're talking about chocolate. Now I've got a munch on. All right, I'm gonna get off here. I'll be back tomorrow at 7. What is tomorrow? Carla Mocha, I think, and Paul Bernardo will be doing that tomorrow, starting that book. Huge trigger warning because it's bad. You guys have a good night. I'll be back tomorrow at 7.